Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to all be together. Instead of starting today with one of the questions that has come in advance, I know there was someone yesterday who I said we will start with your question. Yes. Mike, they know. Go ahead,
Appreciate for I'm here and I was connecting with you. I was watching your all videos and I totally appreciate and I feel free. But my question is why people fear about death? Why people think about that? Because all over the world people are temporary in the world. So why?
Beautiful.
And how we get moksha? How we get?
So, fear of death is actually something that is very beneficial, but it also is something that causes suffering. It's very interesting in that way. It's one of the few things that both is deeply beneficial and also a root cause of deep suffering. Every one of us is here today because our ancestors were afraid of death. The way that evolution works, those who survive are those who have children and pass on their genes, and those are the ones whose descendants we are. So if you look at evolution, on a physical level, we are the descendants of those whose bodies had the best immunity, had the best way of responding to differences in seasons, right? Long before we had air conditionings and heaters. People who died in the summer of heat or died in the winter of cold weren't the ones surviving to reproduce. Those who were robust enough to survive the changes, they are the ones who reproduced. So, on the physical level, on the emotional level, if you go back a few thousand years, tens of thousands of years, when a tiger, a lion, a bear, a wild elephant, a shark came, those who were not afraid tended to die. The one who said, yeah, it's just a bear. Oh, it's just a tiger. I'll just sit here and meditate. They didn't last very long. Right? No matter how beautifully spiritually awake they may have been, it's like that great story of the disciple of the guru who he's studying from the guru. And one day the disciples are walking through the marketplace. And suddenly there's this great shout. Run, run, there's a wild elephant on the loose. And everybody runs. But this disciple is like, oh, elephant is God. I am God. This is what I'm learning from the guru. Nothing to be afraid of. And the elephant guy, they call him the, No, what? Yes, Mahot, yes. So He's yelling at everybody, get out of the way, get out of the way, wild elephant. Everybody runs. This guy stays. Even the other disciples are telling him, run. He says, you have not understood the Guru. Elephant is God, I am God, nothing to fear. So the elephant guy keeps yelling at him, but this man is steadfast. And eventually, of course, the elephant comes and swoops the guy up in his trunk and flings him a few 100 meters, and the man ends up, breaking every bone in his body. And finally, the guru and the disciples are searching for him. They don't even know, where did the elephant fling him? And they find him in the night. He's broken physically, but he's also broken emotionally. And he says to the guru, he says, how could you betray me? You taught me something that was false. You said everything is God. I was just living that. The elephant is God, I am God. How did I end up with all these broken bones? And the guru said, but what about the elephant man who told you to get out of the way? Wasn't he also God? Right? What about all the other villagers yelling, get out of the way? Aren't they also God? So so the point is, those who get out of the way, those who are afraid, throughout history, throughout evolution, are the ones who reproduce. So the fact that we are here is because our ancestors were afraid of death. So we actually should bow to that and be very grateful for that. Because if no one feared death, we wouldn't be here. They would have all been eaten or trampled by lions and tigers and elephants and bears and sharks and whatnot. However, then you take evolution to a whole other level. Because of course one is just physical evolution, where the singular goal is make babies. That is the fundamental goal of evolution. I should be strong enough, healthy enough, live long enough that I make a lot of babies so that my genes pass on. That is the end goal of physical evolution. But we're not our bodies. We have bodies, but we're not our bodies. We haven't taken birth for the purpose of reproducing. We've taken birth to wake up, to know the truth of who we are. And so then we get into this other element where fear of death, instead of being something to be grateful for, becomes actually something that really holds us back. And if you look at what are called kleshas, the ailments, you could say, the causes of suffering that are given to us in the science of yoga, well, along with avidya, ignorance, asmita, ego, rag and dvesh, my likes and dislikes, grabbing and pushing away, is abhinivesh, fear of death. So it's actually one of the core ailments, causes of suffering. And it's a cause of suffering because we then identify only as the body. And we become singularly focused only on the physical body, getting as much as we can. It's a very interesting psychological ignorance, myth, game that our minds play. Somehow, if I have more things, think about it. Imagine that you are in the forest or you're in the jungle and there's a wild animal coming towards you, right? So instinctively, the goal is going to be, and this is actually what you get told when you go hiking in bear country or mountain lion country in California, is if you encounter a bear, or you in those areas, or you encounter a mountain lion, make yourself look as big as possible. Raise your hands. Don't threaten the animal. Don't threaten it, but just make it think that you are bigger than you are. Now that is a survival instinct to try to hopefully keep this thing from taking my life. But what happens very interestingly is in this idea of being bigger, being more, throughout our lives, it's not so much about raise your arms and, use your shawl, but it actually becomes this myth of if I can accumulate more, acquire more wealth, more power, more material items, I somehow am bigger. I am therefore less susceptible to things that afflict smaller people. So this fear of death that we have, leads us into these very off-the-track paths of unnecessarily accumulating, acquiring, as though somehow my 6 houses are going to do me any good if I get a terminal illness, or even if I simply have that terminal illness called life. And it's a very interesting situation, because the thing we fear most is the one non-negotiable of our lives. We are all going to die. Guaranteed. We are walking closer to that every day. We are one day closer to death today than we were yesterday. Non-negotiable. So this fear of death, while it's very good to keep our physical body alive, we stay back from heights. It's smart. Fear of, claustrophobia, again, smart. You don't want to fall, you don't want to suffocate. But if I'm living my life in fear of the one non-negotiable, then I'm living in illusion. I'm living somehow in this ignorant illusion that I can stave off that which is inevitable. Which, of course, isn't true. It brings us back then to avidya, ignorance. And so the very first step in freeing ourselves is the real deep awareness. We're all going to die. Where we do the Ganga Arti, across the river and downriver somewhat, is the cremation ground for Rishikesh. It's just down past the new bridge, past Janki Bridge. And sometimes in Arti, you can see that there's a cremation going on. And I always, whenever it's happening, usually I keep my eyes closed, and just allow myself to lose myself in the Arti. But if I notice a cremation going on, I always try to keep my eyes open. Because it's a very powerful meditation to know that here I am, celebrating, singing, dancing. And yet, tomorrow, the day after, next week, I'm going to be standing there over the burning bodies of my loved ones. Tomorrow, day after, next week, it's going to be me burning in that funeral pyre. And the power of the meditation is not either or. So it's not that I've left mentally being here in Arti and now I'm the one mourning or the one burning. But it's actually the meditation of, can you hold all three realities simultaneously? I am the one celebrating. I am the one dancing. I am the one mourning. And I am the one burning. And it's not easy at all, but just even aiming to do that is a very powerful practice because we feel very safe. We've got this big, wide Ganga between us and cremation. Like this is the celebration side. We're far away. But when you go up from the waters, just a couple feet, the flames from our arti and the flames from their cremation intermingle. You no longer can tease apart what's a flame of celebration and a flame of death. And so the core piece is to recognize we're all dying. Which then brings us to what we are here on earth for, which is, okay, so what is it that doesn't die? And how can I connect with that before the body does die? Because that's when the actual, not only awakening, enlightenment, moksha, but along with that is when my fear of death dissipates. Because if I know it isn't me dying, it's just the body, then that fear dissipates. It's not that we want to die. We love this life. This body is a beautiful gift. Life is an extraordinary gift. We should love it, savor it, protect it. But we also are aware that isn't who I am. So that's the solution. Beautiful. Yes. Yes, 1 and then 2 and then 3.
Before taking birth, we all know that we are multidimensional, awesome, great, infinite beings. And we know our truth, the value of the soul purpose, the truth of ourselves. Then why do we forget when we take the birth? And then we, again go to, like, now people are hearing the satsang. So why do they forget? And second part is, why do we have minds when ultimately we have to act from the awareness point of view?
Great. So we forget. We forget because of what's called the divine Leela. God's play. It's the only explanation. And I say this to you as both a scientist and a spiritual person. There is absolutely no other rational explanation for why we forget the truth of who we are. Because then, of course, there's the whole other question, which is, well, if we're all infinite and one with God, why even bother with this drama? Right? I mean, why even take a body? Why bother? If the whole point is to get free of this cycle of birth and death, well then, why bother? And the only answer that makes any sense from any perspective is just the idea that this is God's play. That the one consciously, purposely, voluntarily becomes many for the joy of becoming one again. Have you ever been in a relationship where you find yourself, usually a romantic one, where you find yourself kind of for no reason making fights? Like things are going really well, and then suddenly, for really no reason at all, you start kind of instigating a fight. And if you're insightful and contemplative, what you realize is we do that because the making up after a fight feels so good that when things were just feeling like, yeah, everything's good, I'm good, he's good, she's good, we're happy, it feels boring when we have that yearning for excitement, you could say, passion, you could say. And so we instigate these little fights because we know, yeah, we'll get over it and then we'll make up. And in that making up, you've come back to where you were before. But there's actually something that feels even better about it. Right? Here you are together again. But you were together before the fight. But nonetheless, it feels better now that the pot's been stirred up. And so when I hear about the divine Leela, I think, all right, well, so maybe God is looking for that joy of the many becoming one again. Yeah, we're all one. But if we forget, then it's like that divine situation of kind of having a fight with the beloved for no real reason other than to come back together. And so that's why we forget. And of course there's different, stories and scriptures about different, times and how it happens and where the memory of who we are gets buried inside of us. But those stories are religion specific. And when you think about an eternal truth, you think about something that doesn't require that you accept or adopt a particular story or a particular book or a particular prayer or a particular incarnation of the divine. And the idea of Leela is really kind of universal. It means God's played this with all of us. It's not that just Hindus have forgotten, because we talk about it like that in Hinduism. Everyone's forgotten. So this Leela idea is one that's universal. So that to me is what makes the most sense. And then in terms of the mind, we actually need the mind. The mind is that which enables us to find our way back. It's the mind that is able to say, who am I? The mind is able to say, I'm not the body. The mind is able to meditate. The mind is able to chant mantra. The mind is able to read scripture. The mind says, let's go to satsang. The mind is that which is allowing us to walk back. But of course, the mind is just a tool. It can work both ways. It can also, of course, take you farther. And that's why it's so critical to purify the mind, so that the mind takes us where we want to go. I think of the mind like a steering wheel in a car. And no matter how beautiful the car, you would never buy one if the steering wheel didn't exist. Or if this car seller said, yeah, only one small problem. When you go left, the car goes right. You'd say, forget it. Last thing I want is a car taking me where I don't want to go. And so this is where we work with the mind to get it to take us where we want to go. Beautiful. Yes, you and then you.
Pranam. My question is more personal.
Sure.
Maybe some others might have this question. So, when I see my parents, or even when I travel to the remotest part of India, I see faith playing a major role, and that's how people are content. And then back to city life, we have all data analytics, data mining, and that's what feed into our decision making. And that's where the decisions are very pragmatic. So on a daily basis, personally, I go through this struggle of faith and this pragmatic decision making, and that's where then there is this constant dilemma and oscillation. So what is your view on this?
Faith is always the place from which I would suggest making decisions. Always. Now, the issue with that, though, is that faith tends not to play much of a role in a lot of the pragmatic, logistic decisions of our life. Meaning, I've got to decide between two jobs. Right? I've got two opportunities. Or I'm trying to decide what degree to get. Faith is that says, whatever I choose, I am going to be able to make that job, that degree, that university, this situation, this decision, one in which I am going to be able to blossom, to flower, to sprout, to awaken, to connect, to walk closer and closer to my ultimate truth of my divinity. Because the universe, God, your own karmic package, none of these supreme aspects really care whether you're a secretary or you're working in the mailroom or you're the junior VP or you're the CEO, or whether you go to University A or University B or you get degree A or degree B, or you marry person A or person B. These are decisions that we make as we walk the path of our lives toward our own awakening. So, for pragmatic decisions, I would have faith, because otherwise we end up distraught. Oh my God, what if I make the wrong decision? Oh my God, what if I make the wrong decision? And everything becomes really this matter of life and death. Oh my God, what if I make the wrong decision? Well, you are still going to be there in whatever decision you make, which means that you get to make any decision into the right decision. It's not the situation that's right or wrong, it's how we are responding in that situation. So hold faith that whatever decision I make, I'm going to be able to utilize that situation, but then use pragmatic ways, whether it's data, whether it's pros and cons lists. I love pros and cons lists. Sometimes it really does actually help to just see things in writing. You think, well, why? I mean, I could think about it in my mind, but somehow seeing a list on paper really makes a difference. And why not use data? It's there. So use whatever resources you have, from data to lists to mentors to, people who give advice. One time in satsang, I won't do it now, but one time I had asked people how they had arrived. Like, what was it that brought them here? And almost everyone answered that it was something on the internet. Meaning they had done some Google search and they'd ended up on some site. Whatever they'd been searching for, ashrams, yoga, spirituality, they'd been searching for something. And this one had, the right number of stars and good reviews and whatnot. And so they came. So this is how people make decisions. Nothing wrong with it. It's beautiful. It's what ends up bringing so many people here. Use whatever resources you have from your own mind, your own power of discernment, to friends, mentors, to the internet. But use your faith to know that there's no such thing as a wrong decision. There's only a wrong way of responding to that decision. And that's for me where I would use those. And once you make the decision, to have faith. A lot of us play it safe. We don't take risks. You weigh what's the likelihood I could fail, and okay, maybe it's not the good percentage, so we say forget it. But there are times when you say, you know what? Yeah, it could fail. Yeah, maybe it's even likely to fail. But you know what? If I don't try, I'm never going to forgive myself. And so you go for it. Because even if something's got an 80% chance of failure, well, that's still a 20% chance of success. It means out of 100 times that someone tries, 20 people succeed. Why wouldn't you be one of them? Even if it's 99 out of 100 people fail, one succeed. Why wouldn't you be that one? So that's where faith comes in. Yeah, last question. We'll start with yours tomorrow. Yes.
Good evening, Didi. My question was that when I was younger, everyone told me that you have to study hard so that you could get a success, you can earn money and you can go to different cities and you can explore the world. So my question is that only the true success for which we are searching? Is that only the true success, that we can earn money, we can go to different countries, explore everything, or get an VIP special treatment? Is that only the true success? Or it is something else? And if it is something else, then what is the way that we can find it?
What is your name?
Dhruv Tyagi.
You are beautiful.
Thank you, Didi.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
There was a beautiful saint who used to live right across Ganga from us, named Swami Dayanandji Maharaj. Amazing saint. And he used to say, the only definition of success that matters, the only definition of success that matters, is how you respond to the inevitable times that the universe does not behave the way you think it should. Okay? The only definition of success that matters is how you respond to the inevitable times. Nothing you can do about it. It is inevitable that the universe does not behave the way you think it should. And I've carried that so deeply all of these years, because when things don't go our way, we react. Either externally, we freak out, we have a temper tantrum, we become violent, we abuse drugs and alcohol, whatever it may be. Or we react inside. We become depressed, we become miserable. We lose faith, become angry at ourselves, at the universe. In order to actually be able to respond with love, with peace, with joy, with truth, when things do not go the way you want. You've got to have a lot of spiritual practice under your belt. Right? So it's not a one-time thing. It's not I clenched my teeth this time and didn't react, so now I'm a success. It's that ability to be so anchored and grounded in something that is eternal and unchanging. The truth of who I am that has nothing to do with what someone else says or does, what happens with the stock market, what happens with my bank account, what happens with my Facebook followers, how many stamps I have in a passport, or anything else. That anchoring and grounding in who you are, that is success in life. And if you needed more evidence, the sheer number of people, percentage of people even, who are fantastically wealthy, fantastic successes, as in the CEO of something, the head of something, the famous this, who are miserable, is huge. Huge. Alcohol addiction, drug addictions, lots of conflict in marriages, lots of divorces and remarriages, eating disorders, depressions, rehab centers. Because living your life in a way where people's love of you is based not on who you are, but on what you have, money, power, title, must be really depressing. Because you know it inside. We're all a lot smarter than we look. You know that everybody's just being nice to you because you're the boss, or that everybody's being nice to you because you're the rich one, and they're all at a party on your yacht. Naturally, they have to be nice. They want to get invited again. You know that. And you know inside that if you lost the money and you lost the power, chances are these people would not be coming to your, picnic of sandwiches in the park. And that's depressing. Because what it means is that nobody's actually seeing you or loving you for who you are. And so what ends up happening is people run for more because they feel empty. But they can't actually acknowledge, oh my God, I've spent all these decades of my life running in a direction that's just left me miserable. So they keep going for more. So I can tell you in no uncertain terms that that is not what success is. You absolutely need enough money so that you're not worried about where your next meal is going to come from. Enough money that if your roof leaks and it's the rainy season, you can get it fixed. Enough money that if you or a loved one needed medical care, you knew that you had money to take care of that. But pretty much beyond that, focus your attention elsewhere. The money will come. Maybe a lot will come, maybe a little will come, maybe a medium amount will come. But as long as you've got those very basic needs met, focus your attention on actually doing that which enables you to live as who you are, to discover who you are, to share your light with the world. That's what you're here for. Okay? Beautiful. Wonderful. Have a beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. A beautiful morning and day to our family joining us from abroad. Very happy Christmas Eve to those celebrating Christmas Eve all over the world. And so much love to you all. And look forward to seeing you tomorrow.